if anything, it just made it a lot more clear for undecideds, independents, maybe people that wouldn't have voted otherwise, that this is the guy. He's now become, to his benefit, a martyr. I think that as a person, I think he is low energy and sort of less inspiring than he was 8 years ago. I've been actually a little critical of him in the past couple days, but this is making it, it's turning him into a martyr and a symbol. And I think that's only going to benefit him. As for the other cases, I don't think it impacts the other cases, although I think it does indicate that if he got such a raw deal, I think these were maybe the most trumped up, no pun intended, out of all the series of charges. If he got found guilty in this, I don't think it's going to go too well for him in the others. But of course, that's kind of like the gambler's fallacy. So that's kind of my big picture take, to kind of touch on a few different areas.
Can I correct something that Nick just said there, by the way, about the law? Because this is something we need to keep pounding on and pounding on and pounding on. And that is, there is no crime in hush money payments. In fact, this crime that they're charging here, if in fact this were a crime that they say you have to publicize some sort of payment for your hush money, payoffs to people who are making claims against you, in that case, there's a slush fund that Congress has that they actually take care of all these claims for congressional members, which means that every time that slush fund is used for any one of those members of Congress, that should have to be reported on the individual congressperson who got that benefit, the same way Trump reportedly got this benefit from Michael Cohen. So all these different claims that there's a crime that's here and he's being held accountable and no one is above the law. Every person in Congress has that slush fund available to them, and it's literally been used hundreds of times over the past decade. We have no idea how many times these things have been used. Those slush fund payments have been used, and if in fact there's a duty to report them because of FICA or any other federal thing that's unlawful to not report it, in that case, every person in Congress who ever benefited from it is equally guilty of this crime. But no one even thinks to charge them. And that's why I think Nick Fuentes, I think there's probably, like, I don't know, out of 1,000 things in the universe, there may be 2 I agree with him on. I think the one thing I agree with him on resoundingly is that Americans are waking up to the warts of our judicial system and of our institutions at large. We woke up to the warts of our messaging with respect to mainstream media. We woke up to the warts with respect to our medical community in 2020. We're waking up to all the lies of the media and the ridiculous ways that our justice system is being co-opted by nefarious individuals who don't give the slightest damn about justice, and all they have is an agenda that they want to promote. And we are starting to wake up to this. I think that for Donald Trump's election purposes, as Nick stated, we saw how he started surging when these charges came down. I think we're looking at him getting well over 300 electoral votes as a result of this conviction. I think these convictions are great for him. I don't think that they're going to have the cojones to throw him in prison. I'm not even sure how that would work feasibly with respect to him needing Secret Service, although we can expect that Congress is going to try to strip him of that because of their purely positive agenda for America. So, but I don't think they're going to have the cojones to throw him. They're going to suspend this decision or put him on probation, or whatever stupid decision they come is the most likely outcome here, rather than imprisoning him. But I'll tell you this much: he spends 1 day in jail, I think he'll get 400 electoral votes. I think New York's going to fall to Trump. I think we'll start seeing New Jersey start slipping toward Trump. We're going to see this country. We're going to see such a massive red wave resulting, because Americans, and you know what, Dustin is right also in what he said on the other space. We need to start getting angry. It's not like, oh, this is okay. It's like, no, F you. This is terrible. We need to have rallies. You're basically destroying our country because in your desperate efforts to quote unquote save democracy, or whatever other backward phrase that they come up with. So yeah, a lot of people are going to be upset about this. This should make you determined as hell. That there's no way they're going to continue. Go ahead. I've been talking for a while.
Thank you. Good logic. I just have a quick question for you. You think that you don't think he'll actually spend even a moment in jail? Is that correct? You don't believe that at all?
I don't know. I mean, look, they might order some sort of house arrest type of thing. That might happen, or I don't know, Mar-a-Lago arrest. They might try to order something like that.
But you're leaning towards probation. Is that correct? I think most people that I've read in the comments are leaning more towards probation.
Or a supervised release, yeah, it's like a supervised release type of thing, maybe where he has to notify them where he's going as a way of exerting their control over him. So we might see something like that. So I wouldn't just say I'm saying that's what they're going to give him probation, because Merchan is likely going to say there's 34 convictions here, and that I can't just give you probation for that. So I don't think he's just going to let him walk. I do think that they're going to try and exert some level of control.
But if he's elected president, that would all go out the window, correct? Because the president can't report back to the courts when they are, say, going to the G7, right?
That's a great question. That's a great question. No, we never had to answer that. Anyone who says they know definitively what would happen is speculating.
Can I jump in here for a
Yeah,
second?
go
No,
ahead.
I'm curious if that's going to be the case. If he were convicted,
I can answer that.
Go ahead, Ship. Thank you.
Okay, so let me roll a little grenade. Look for Jack Smith in the next 24 hours to maybe file a motion in D.C. with Judge Chutkan for a violation of Trump's terms and conditions of pretrial release, one of which is that he commit no state or federal crime. Now he has a conviction of a state crime that's a violation of his terms of pretrial release. I would not put it past Smith to file a petition and ask Judge Chutkan to put him in custody or to apply more stringent terms of release, such as home detention. Now, as far as if he's elected president, then you have a supremacy clause issue. The state of New York cannot incarcerate the executive of the federal government. That's just a supremacy clause issue. Whatever the state of New York wanted to do would have to wait until he was out of office in 2029. So, but I would not put anything past Jack Smith. So I'm going to be watching. He won't do it in Florida. He won't do it with Judge Cannon in Florida because it'll go nowhere. But he could do it in D.C.
Look, I'll tell you, my thoughts on that is it's kind of weird to say that the action took place 7 years ago, and now the conviction coming in 2024 would somehow turn that into a violation of his parole that was issued in D.C. In normal circumstances, I would say that's bizarre, makes no sense. However, we just saw Donald Trump get 34 convictions, arguably for paying too much taxes. And illegally, unlawfully, that's what the jury charges say. You can find him guilty of literally paying too much taxes. For all we know, he has 34 convictions right now because he signed off on paying more taxes than he actually was obligated to pay. I mean, think of how bizarre and how desperate they were to try and find any basis to call him a felon. Literally paying too much taxes. That's why he has 34 convictions. How asinine.
Okay, so I want to go to TJ real quick because TJ, you are an attorney. You do work in courts pretty frequently, actually, and so we just saw this being set for July 11th. Sentencing being set for July 11th. When are we going to find out here when President Trump, or whether or not he'll be remanded into custody, or what sort of terms he'll have of his release?
So I haven't read the order.
Can I answer that just
Is that
really
public yet?
briefly? The judge said he's allowed out, no bail. Typically, remand would happen before that decision was made, and if the decision has been made to let him leave with no bail, unless there are changed circumstances, I'm not aware of any, there will be no remand.
Yeah, I think Nick was more talking about whether we would know if President Trump is looking at jail time, is what I think he was asking. And the remand term is a term of art, and and what Tira said there is correct. Generally speaking, since they let him out, he's probably not gonna have that situation unless he is unless something extreme happens. I would have to see what the order says. I'd have to see how long they want to do the sentencing hearing. Those they can be quick. They can go for several days. I mean, especially when you do federal criminal defense practice, which my law firm does, a whole lot of your job really is just the sentencing issues. We have had sentencing go for as little as one day in past experiences. I've been involved in criminal defense cases in which the sentencing went on for multiple weeks. It does happen. It is a lot to consider. I don't know the process with New York. What I can say in terms of it is I I I think there's practicality concerns as well, where I do think that jailing him is highly unlikely, and the thing is, again, as well, there's the fact that, let's face it, this entire thing was just a political ploy to try to label President Trump as a felon and hope that that works. It's backfiring already. But it's so that's the thing. I'm in many ways there were signals. I forget who it was, but one of President Trump's defense attorneys said that President Trump is facing jail time over this, and Judge Merchan even said this is that's ridiculous. And I think that shows the politics of it all. It was just to label him as a convicted felon. They've already gotten what they want on it. And I mean, here's the thing: like they're messing around, and it's on us to make sure that they find out in November that we can see through this nonsense. Sure, 12 people in Manhattan couldn't. I think the American people will.
If
TJ, can I?
correct, what Donald Trump, he was sent a lawful subpoena. Now, when you get a lawful subpoena, you're supposed to respond to it, right? You're supposed to send back the documents. You can make filings, say we don't think so, blah blah blah, but you're supposed to respond to it properly. What the indictment says is that he got Walt Nata. There were 60 boxes of documents. He had his people move all 60 into another area. He then had them bring back 30, and it was only those 30 boxes that were searched and sent back as responsive to the subpoena. Now, in any court I know, with any lawyer I know, quite frankly, if you took away Donald Trump's name and you said those are correct, they would say, wow, that's obstruction. You cannot do that. So you said those were bogus. I have to tell you that I think that particular charge is sort of like a slam dunk, assuming the allegations are correct. Thanks.
So, Tira, can I
Yeah,
also
can I respond?
1 second, guys. I'm just gonna give it to Nick to respond, and then after that, we're just gonna play something from former President Trump. So go ahead, Nick, respond to that, and then we'll go and play the clip.
Yeah, so I mean, what I said about all these charges is you have to look at it at the big picture and paint in broad strokes. And I think that if you get into the fine details of it, I think you're probably right. I think that, and I've said this before on my show, I think in the classified documents case in particular, I think there probably was impropriety. But let's think about the unprecedented nature of the fact that this is a former president who's been impeached twice, spied on through the FISA courts, censored on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. I mean, he's really been run through the ringer here. They really did the whole gauntlet of legal, private sector. I mean, everything they could do to this guy. And then the DOJ case they bring is a clerical issue. Oh, you had classified document. I mean, listen to what you're saying. This is a case against a former president who also happens to be a major party nominee for president in the forthcoming election. The case the DOJ brings is a clerical case. You had some papers in a box. It's also especially rich after what had been going on with Hillary Clinton with her private email server when she was Secretary of State, which, by the way, that never saw the light of day. There were no charges over that. I think that Trump made a big mistake not going after her. I think there's a lesson in that. Trump got elected, and despite saying that he would appoint a special prosecutor and she'd be in jail, totally declined out of what? Magnanimity, incompetence, who knows? I think it was a mistake. Biden gets in. They hire 1,000 FBI agents, 1,000 judges. They go after 1,600 people who they charge in connection with January 6th. And I think you know as well as I do, this is lawfare, plain and simple. They have an agenda, and it's not about they're looking for wrongdoing. It's not like they happened upon this. They're looking to create prosecutions because they're after this guy. So that's why they're looking, what can we do with the phone call in Fulton County? What can we do with the business filings in New York City? What can we do with January 6th? What can we do with this? The point is the cart is being put before the horse. They want to take this guy down. They find something. unprecedented. It's it's globally historically significant, and it's over classified documents. I mean, I think that if you went and found any former president, because it involves a lot of paperwork, and especially somebody like Trump, who's extremely disorganized and is facing numerous lawsuits, he was facing all this stuff with the DOJ already and had been charged in Manhattan prior to the raid at Mar-a-Lago. I don't think it's totally out of bounds that you have a clerical error, which is really what it amounts to. And I think the frustration that the other gentleman, is that good logic, was referring to is that, you see all these other politicians, there seems to be no accountability about actual smoking guns, actual things that happen. WMDs in Iraq, gain of function research, the mRNA vaccine injuries, the media cover up. I mean, what did they say? It was like 25 intelligence officials signed on a letter and said the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian propaganda. I mean, you could go after one example after another, real scandals, like real actual consequences for the country. Doesn't seem to be any problems for anybody else. But this guy, like I said, when you look at the big picture, the shoe doesn't fit. They've gone through everything, and what they come up with is phone call, so-called conspiracy, an extremely broad statute, as you know. And I know this because I talked to my lawyers about it over January 6th. It's a prosecutor's gift. It's conspiracy. It's classified documents. It's bullshit. And so, we could get into the granular, and to close, I mean, I'm just going to say, we could get into the granular fine things, and I actually probably would agree with you. But I think it's just context denial to say that this is a legitimate prosecution, that they're looking for wrongdoing rather than they're trying to hang this guy and they're looking for any way to do it. I think that's just how they operate. And the lawfare, it's just as much about getting the conviction as it is about the process. This stuff is costly, it's distracting, it's time consuming. He's an old man, he's running in an election, running a campaign. And I think they all know, whether it's the civil suits or the criminal suits, they know everything they bring against this guy. They have virtually limitless resources. It's just going to slow him down, distract him, drain him, and bring him down. And that's the intention. I think everybody knows that when you look at the big picture. So that's my rebuttal to that.
I appreciate that, Nick. I'm going to go to Khaleesi because she's going to just play a clip from former President Trump. Go ahead, Khaleesi.
Thanks, Suleiman. So we played it earlier at the top of the space, but these are the few words that President Trump said right outside the courtroom after the verdict. 1 second.
It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. It would give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros back, DA, and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man. And it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end and we'll win because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble, but this was a rigged decision right from day one with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
That's it, and he didn't take any questions. Thanks, guys.
I appreciate that. And yeah, that there is a clip of that in the net if you want to check that out because it was echoing a little bit, unless it was just for me. Let me go to straight back to Nick. Nick, one of the questions I asked, and I don't know if you answered it previously, is that This case, when we spoke about, and Tira, the same question is going to come to you actually. When we spoke to you, when me and Tira and many others, both from the right, both from the left, spoke, this, many disagreed about the strength of the claims, all four cases. But what generally everyone agreed, with slight variations, was this was basically the more weaker case out of the rest. If President Trump has been convicted for the more weaker case, what does that show us about what's going to happen for the remaining three cases?
Well, yeah, it's like I said, and I don't want to monopolize the whole time, so I'm going to keep it brief. But it's exactly like you say. I think this was the weaker case, and it's like Logic said. I mean, he said that I said that it's illegal to do hush money. I didn't say that. I agree with you. I think that the whole so-called hush money thing, I don't even see the crime there. I certainly don't see the secondary crime that makes it a felony, because there was this phantom secondary crime that elevated it from a misdemeanor to a felony. I don't see the misdemeanor or the felony. And so I think this was probably the weakest one out of the four. And as Tira said, I think the strongest one is the classified documents. I mean, I recall there was that leaked recording that came out, which was, I think, really inconvenient for Trump. This was last year. I think he basically admitted to it. He's in Mar-a-Lago saying, "Oh, come look at these documents. They're classified." It sounded like it was almost like too good to be true for a prosecutor. So, of course, I don't think one has necessarily anything to do with the other. I don't think the outcome of this one affects the outcome of the others. But, certainly this was a weaker case. He was found guilty. To the extent that reflects sentiment, or maybe the political will to prosecute, or rather, for jurors or whoever to bring down the hammer on this guy, then I think they're definitely going to get him in the documents case. But I don't know the timeline of when all these different trials are set for. Like I said, I'm not really into the details, but clearly this was the weaker one. He got found guilty. I think there's going to be more guilty verdicts coming up. But this is why I think Trump supporters, I mean, this is me to the right. I mean, not so much to the left. I think this is why I don't want to say it's a waste of time, but I think it's making the lawfare work if you give it too much attention, because that's the whole point, is to suck all the air out of the room. And we're talking about Fannie Willis and Alvin Bragg. I know that's what this space is about, but I think that's the purpose of the lawfare, is to derail the entire operation. So all the time is spent getting into the weeds on minutia and tedium about these various cases, when in reality, if we zoom out, it's like, what's the big deal? Paperwork, boxes, phone calls. This stuff is nothing. So that, my mind's just really not into a lot of this stuff. I think the big picture is this is part of a 10-year lawfare campaign. And that's how I think Trump supporters have to approach this. I think that's how Trump should approach it. And that's the way he's going to win the election.
Suleiman,
Tira,
let me
Tira, same question to you, and I can just add an extra detail,
yeah.
and then I was straight same question to you, because I was actually going to come to you about the same question. Same question to you, and if you can answer that question, because we don't know what the charges are going to be for this. Many people